Healer Horn, this kid's vital signs are declining. I am afraid that it will not last long without treatment. You should quickly prepare recovery fluid and nutrient solution, at least to maintain this kid's life. Hey, this expense is again, it should be counted in the funding of the training team. How could it hurt like this? It looks like a little guy who just joined the training team. Who can say no? It was the first time I did field training. It was really unlucky. If this guy can be saved, I can save it. If I can't save it, I will report it to Master Pulapai. Hey, don't worry, you know the level of our treatment center. Many newborns are trained here. Okay, no one knows that all your services here are clearly marked. By the way, don't use too good recovery fluid. The training team has been budgeted recently. To understanding. This is a scene that took place in the treatment center. Horn from the Yugal Star sent away the Saiyan who was the leader of the training team with a smile on his face. He turned his head and glanced at the Saiyan child who was already inhuman, about 3 years old. Very thin, probably in the form of malnutrition. The vitality of the Saiyans is really tenacious, and they can survive such a severe injury. Hey, so it's a fighting nation. If I had such a strong physique as a Saiyan, I would have become a powerful warrior long ago, and I wouldn't be a healer in this healing center. Yugal Star Horner checking the injured child with the instrument, the octopus-like head kept shaking his head. The internal organs are severely compressed, there are many bleedings in the body, and as many as 16 bones are broken. The most serious is the trauma on the head. There is little hope of rescue. Call up this little guy's information. With a beep, the computer system connects to the energy detector in the child's ear and calls up the database inside. Soon information about this young Saiyan was projected in the air. Name, Loyolan Parents, Terrans, Alicia Qualification, Intermediate Combat Power, 134. I'm still a mid-level fighter. I wouldn't be sent to the training team unless my parents died. Picking up the seriously injured Saiyan baby, the Yugal Star put him into a transparent treatment cabin with the help of his assistant. Then pour the green recovery fluid into it. The quality of this restoration solution is average, but the price is cheap. According to the instructions of the training team leader, do not use too good recovery fluid, because the funds are insufficient. In fact, the Saiyans whose parents have died, unless they are talented, the training team will not take care of them at all. After simple training, we'll directly assign tasks to them and send Vegeta stars. To put it bluntly, the training team is a place where some Saiyan orphans are given intensive training, and they can be taught basic survival skills and fighting methods. They will throw their children directly into the dangerous wilderness and let them fight alone with the beasts in the jungle. The training method is very cruel. Vegeta is an advanced planet. Although Saiyans have the absolute dominance on it, there are still very fierce beasts in the wilderness. The casualty rate of this kind of training can be imagined. Therefore, as long as they are Saiyans whose parents are alive, their parents would rather train their children by themselves than send their children to a training group. At night, Loyolan was still immersed in the recovery solution, and suddenly a series of bubbles appeared in the green solution. The monitoring system found that the individual's various indicators were obviously abnormal, and the warning sound beep beep sounded. What happened? The Yugal Star Horn and his assistant rushed over and saw the data on the monitor. Although the body has been repaired, the brainwave display has become a straight line. Take it away, this guy is no longer rescued, stop the recovery liquid input, and take out the solution inside for secondary recovery. Who will deal with his body? The treatment center often encounters Saiyans who have died due to treatment failures. Their bodies are generally claimed by relatives or friends. However, for some dead orphans, they are directly processed by the treatment center, usually burned in situ, or by special the processing robot finds a place to bury it. After writing the death certificate and signing a word on it, the Yugal Star called to deal with the robot. The processing robot directly packed Loyolan and transported it to a small forest more than 100 kilometers away, then hummed a whole, threw the corpse inside, and buried it again. After handling all this, the processing robot ran a few laps on the spot, and the tracked rollers tamped the soil, then reported to complete the task and drove back to the treatment center. The sky is dim, moon stars are sparse, and hazy stars dot the sky. Just where the body was submerged, a magical scene was happening. Luolan didn't know how long he was in a coma. When he regained consciousness, a tingling pain from the depths of his soul continued to torment him. His body was so heavy that he couldn't open his eyelids even with all his strength. This was a huge torture, and Luolan felt a huge light in front of him in a daze. He struggled for a long time, finally opened his eyes. The smell of mud came from my nostrils. Wait, I was buried in the ground? Luolan was awakened abruptly, bared his teeth. The intense pain made Luolan's face pale, and the big beads of sweat flowed down. Luolan struggled to get up from the mud. Because of the injuries on his body, he exerted tremendous physical strength with every move. After crawling out of the ground, Luolan gasped, breathing the fresh air in the air, his lungs suddenly filled with vitality as if they were moisturized. Where am I? Luolan's head was still drowsy, and a series of memories came out in the next second. With a loud scream, Luolan accepted this physical memory. After receiving the memory, his immature eyes flashed with incredible light. It turned out to be Star Vegeta, and I turned out to be a Saiyan toddler, and I have already died once. Luolan was full of surprise. He didn't expect that he would go to the Dragon Ball world when he woke up after sleeping. According to the memory of this body, his name was Luolan, a match that died because of an accident when he entered the training team. Demi. The parents of this body were killed in the battle for performing the task as early as a year ago. Although they later received a pension, all of these pensions have been used to pay for the high cost of the child's nutrition solution. In Vegeta, the newborn Saiyan will be soaked in nutrient solution for 3 years after being born. These 3 years are mainly to strengthen the baby's physical fitness and stimulate greater potential. Because Luolan's parents passed away early, the quality of the nutrient solution in the later period was not good. Compared with the Saiyans in the same period, it was a bit not acquired. What a shame! Luolan pulled the weeds from the ground. Compared with the Saiyans of the same period, he seems to be naturally weaker. Even dead digging a hole is so perfunctory. Calm, although he is not a superior fighter, he is an intermediate fighter anyway. In fact, an intermediate fighter is not bad. Luolan comforted himself. He should feel fortunate compared to crossing into a human being on Earth. If a human being on Earth started the game, it would be called mode. I've died once. According to the characteristics of Saiyan becoming stronger near death, my strength should be able to improve. It feels to think about it this way. Wait, now is not the time to think about this. If this is Star Vegeta, we must first figure out how many years are left before the beginning of the plot, and the Star Vegeta will be destroyed. A strong sense of urgency suddenly arose in Luolan's heart. He who died once, didn't want to die a second time. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. The Star Vegeta at the end is a very dangerous place, and Frisia, a well-known planet seller, might have already set his sights on it. Luolan knew in his heart that the most important thing now was to figure out the time period he was in, and then leave Vegeta Star as soon as possible, but then he saw his short arms and legs. He knew that his thoughts were going to be lost for the time being. The child's body is really in trouble, sitting on the ground cursingly. The only thing that gives him a trace of comfort is that he probably won't be in danger now. Reflexively, Luolan wanted to press the energy detector beside her ear, but he could not touch anything. Only then did I realize that my energy detector had also been recovered, and there was nothing left except a small combat uniform. In this case, you don't even know how much combat power you have. It would be great if she knew how to feel the breath of a human being on Earth. Vegeta could learn the sense of breath by observing the sense of aura without a teacher. Luo Lan also wanted to try it, but after spending a lot of work, she didn't even know what chi is. Clear. It seems that I am far from being a genius. Luo Lan cocked his mouth and chirped. After all, there are not many geniuses like Vegeta in the entire Vegeta. If you can learn the tricks of the Earthlings casually, the aliens in the universe will not all use energy detection device. Breath induction must be very profound. Luo Lan comforted herself and never thought that her talent was not enough. In fact, Luo Lan's talent is still very good, and he was judged as an intermediate fighter at birth, which is already quite remarkable. Among Saiyan newborns, those with a combat power of 50 or less at birth are lower-level fighters, those between 50 and 100 are mid-level fighters, and those with more than 100 are geniuses among Saiyans and are judged as superior fighters. In all Saiyan races, the number of upper-level fighters is very small, and there may not be 1 in 100 newborns. Every upper-level fighter is a talent who is closely watched and cultivated. Things like entering a training group will never happen. When it comes to them, even if they are orphans, the ethnic group will give them the best care. Below the upper-level fighters are the middle-level fighters and the mainstay of the future of the ethnic group. They account for 8% or 9% of newborns, and they are not many. The remaining 90% are all lower-level fighters, including more than half of non-combatants who have been unable to break through 1000 combat power in their entire lives. Generally speaking, the birth of a Saiyan largely determines the strength that can be achieved in the future. Even if the lower-level fighters are well trained, their combat effectiveness is generally below 2000 after they grow up, while the intermediate fighters are between 2000 and 5000. Only superior fighters can reach or exceed 5000 combat effectiveness. Therefore, the upper-level fighters are particularly noble among the Saiyans. They are the famous family of the Saiyans and the highest fighting power of the Saiyans. At present, the entire Vegeta star has no more than 5 superior fighters with a combat power of more than 10,000, and they are all outstanding among Saiyans without exception. According to my memory, this body of mine originally had 134 combat power. It reached this level at the age of 3. It is already very impressive. It can reach at least 3000 combat power in adulthood. Unfortunately, due to insufficient nutrient supplementation, life was delayed. Cut. Thinking of the secular practices of the treatment center, Luo Lan detested. If you give him top-notch nutrient solution, he can guarantee that his current combat effectiveness can definitely reach 180. But then again, if the strength of the predecessor is so strong, there will be no chance for him to pass through the possession. Humph, I don't understand something so profound in breath induction anyway, but the energy wave should be able to do it. Let me think about it. It seems that I have used it in my memory. It is like this. According to the memory, the energy in the body is operated. Soon a cluster of dazzling light suddenly formed in the palm of the hand, and then turned into a bright blue energy ball. Rising up, energy ball! Luo Lan shouted excitedly. But the next second, the violent movement affected his body's injuries, Luo Lan staggered, and the energy ball in his hand was thrown out. A spherical object glowing with blue light suddenly flew out like a bullet, and instantly hit the forest a few hundred meters away. There was a violent sound of rumbling, and the energy bomb burst out terrifying energy at the moment of impact. Countless sand and gravel filled the sky, which quickly made the vision hazy. The energy exploded from the energy bomb instantly destroyed a wide range of forests, and a strong shock wave spread from the center of the explosion to the surroundings. Numerous towering trees were bent to the ground, and the whole tree was uprooted. When the smoke composed of sand and dust dissipated, what appeared in front of us was bare sand and stone that had become unrecognizable and nearly 100 meters square. Luo Lan looked dumbfounded, startled by the destruction she had caused. This power is too strong, it's like being hit by a missile. This kind of destructive power is definitely more than 134 combat power. The near-death once really stimulated the potential of oneself. No, it should be said that it stimulated the potential provided by the previous nutrient solution. Luolan smiled stupidly, as if a fire was burning in his heart. At this moment, Frisia and Demon Bu were nothing, and he could easily defeat them. Bah, what dream are you doing? I have nothing to provoke them to do. Luolan slapped herself, really nothing to do. Now it is the most important thing to save her life. Well, it is too dangerous to find a way to leave Vegeta as soon as possible. With this idea in his mind, Luolan began to think about how to get an aircraft. If you can't steal it, then you can only steal it, but even if it is stolen, he will not use it. Really distressed. Well, let's improve my strength first, it will be easier to handle everything with higher strength. Luolan's heart is so eager. Dragon Ball world adheres to the law of the weak and the strong, and the strength is the first. Now that you have become a Saiyan, if you don't make good use of your talents, isn't it a trip for nothing? So in the following days, Luolan lived alone in the forest. Fortunately, this forest was only 100 kilometers away from the nearest Saiyan gathering place. The more powerful beasts in the forest had long been cleared by the Saiyans. Luolan stayed here to get acquainted with her own power. Today is the 135th day of the journey, and today I was severely repaired. The opponent is a rabbit with long ears. It is strange. The rabbits on Vegeta are so powerful. Wait, this chew first, write it down and wait for me to burn it. I ate lunch beautifully, and my combat effectiveness really improved a lot. I feel that it is now better than the Tianjin fan in the world's #1 Budokai. It is worthy of the body of a Saiyan. The physical fitness is too strong. It won't be long before you can surpass that big devil. Ma Dan, this is the Dragon Ball world, can't be proud. Stay for a while. I will go back to the gathering place in a few days. I can't afford to lose my time. I must leave Vegeta as soon as possible. However, I am a black household now. How can I get rid of it? Bathed in the moonlight, I feel full of energy. Luolan lay on the grass piled with broken leaves, reminiscing about more than 100 days of coming to Vegeta. The surroundings are chaotic, like being swept by a storm, leaving a messy appearance. It seems that this body is about 3.5 years old. Fortunately, even if there is not enough nutrient solution, the growth is still not slowed down. This is because of the daily exercise. Luolan is very happy. In short, his talent is good. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. In the following days, Luolan explored the potential of the body while thinking about the way to leave Vegeta, but after deliberation, she finally felt that she should restore her identity first, and then casually accept a mission away from Vegeta. The most convenient. After leaving Vegeta, disconnect the communicator again. Who cares about Vegeta's situation? Whether the Saiyan is alive or dead, it has nothing to do with him. At that time, traveling in the universe unrestrainedly, having nothing to do, killing a few cosmic people, and finding a planet rich in resources for a good pastime when tired, wouldn't it be extremely enjoyable? By the way, you can also go to the Earth, where you are absolutely invincible, maybe you can even flirt with the heroines in the original, and something like this happens. Luolan thought about it, feeling that the future is full of bright. Sure enough, life on the other side of the Earth is more suitable for you. Wait, he suddenly woke up and remembered a very important thing. What if there are still many years left before the plot begins, or when he arrives on Earth and finds that it is still in ancient times, what can he do? This is not impossible. The cold sweat broke out all at once, and Luolan suddenly realized that she seemed to have been ignoring a certain possibility. Who can guarantee that he will pass through the time period close to the beginning of the plot, in case it is decades or hundreds of years earlier, when the plot begins, he will not even have ashes left. Your luck will never be so bad. No, shouldn't all the traversers fit the plot? This is the basic operation. He smiled and wiped his head. Luolan himself became unsure, after all, even crossing this kind of thing happened, who else can say with certainty? I remember a novel that was written like this, about an indigenous protagonist who had not lived well since he was a child, but accidentally took the risk of getting a note left by the predecessors of the ancient traverser, discovering different prospects from it and starting to rise to the top. It can be seen that the senior traverser is not necessarily the protagonist, but may also be a golden finger arranged for the protagonist. Thinking of this, Luolan's heart was even more unreliable. This wave seems a bit unstable. Ma Dan, why are you still nesting here? Go back to the gathering place to confirm. If you don't go, the protagonist's status will be lost. Luolan's immature face appeared entangled. He had to go back anyway, frowning and thinking for a while, but fortunately there were memories of his predecessor in his brain. After determining the position, Luolan's small body began to float, and then flew towards the nearby Saiyan gathering place. Although Saiyans can't sense breath, their Qigong wave and flying skills are readily available. A blast of cold wind blew on his face. Luolan shuddered, and a secret cry was so cold that his body couldn't stand it. Just thinking about whether to slow down a little bit, the energy in the body reacted, fiery energy. It started to boil, forming a protective film on the surface of his body, and the cold feeling disappeared without a trace. In other words, they can already fly, there is no reason to resist the cold. Although the life forms in the universe do not understand what qi is and cannot perceive qi, the use of energy is definitely more comprehensive. When Luolan covered the body with energy, the ears, eyes, and other 5 senses became particularly sensitive. It seems that energy does help improve the body's senses. Perhaps it is precisely because of this that people in the universe have developed the habit of watching with the naked eye and exploring with energy detectors. Only the terrible low martial arts environment of the Earth, due to the pitiful low energy value, has developed martial arts skills that use qi to sense. Because for the people on Earth, the energy of every trace of qi comes from hardship, and it may take decades to cultivate for a trace of qi, and it is impossible to spend it, so a very rigorous system has naturally formed. Like Monkey King and Klin, when they first learned Qigong waves in the early days, they just knew the way of releasing Qigong waves, but they didn't know the specific content. For people on Earth with only more than 100 combat power, Qigong wave is more like an identity sign of a senior martial artist. It is not well used in actual combat, because the loss of the enemy is large, the preparation time is long, and the effect is far inferior to using fists. It is effective, so warriors are used to fighting with fists and feet more often. This is true of Monkey King and Gaixian. Only after the cultivation of the temple, the level of improvement, the superiority of the Earth's qi will gradually manifest. Luolan doesn't know this yet, he just uses energy waves habitually based on memory. This practice must be changed, otherwise you will develop a habit, and if you want to learn the use of qi, then there will be more obstacles out of thin air, and learning will only get half the result with half the effort. The night was faint, like a pair of giant hands clasped down. The nearest Saiyan gathering place for Luolan is only over 100 kilometers away. At this distance, based on Luolan's flying speed, it can be reached in 10 minutes. A dim light appeared before his eyes. The front is the gathering place where Luolan used to live. The scale of that gathering place is not very large, so the living conditions are not very good. It is incomparable with the big Saiyan city and the king. This kind of gathering place was initially established by some Saiyan squads to facilitate the execution of tasks. Later, after development, with the increase of personnel, it gradually formed a scale similar to the market. After slowing down, Luolan landed on the ground. The gathering place at night is very quiet, and the buildings that look like stone hollowed out from the center are neatly arranged in rows. There was a square in the center of the gathering place. It was the place where the Saiyan temporarily parked the aircraft. Even at night, there were adult Saiyan handles. So even if he was very greedy for those aircraft, Luolan's reason told him not to approach. My home should be in the southeast of the gathering place. According to the memory in his mind, Luo Lan avoided the pedestrians on the street and walked in front of a low stone house. That is the house left by Luo Lan's parents. Hey! Suddenly the dim light in front attracted his attention, and the lights in his house were actually lit. Being thief was the first reaction in Luo Lan's mind, and then shook his head. Scions are not so vulgar. Those gangs of Joe Peeling won't recycle my house. All kinds of thoughts kept flashing in his mind. Luo Lan cursed, tiptoed close to her house, head leaning on the window to look inside. The window is open, so you can easily see the furnishings inside. The inner door is tightly closed. The furnishings in the room have not been moved, but there seems to be someone walking inside. When Luo Lan was about to find out, the people inside had already found him. Who? A clear female voice, very cold but nice. Luo Lan's heart tightened and reflexively wanted to escape, but at this moment, a cold wind blew, and a faint fragrance entered his nostrils. Luo Lan's feet lightened, and the young body was picked up. The other party was a very beautiful girl who looked 16 or 17 years old. She was tall and well-proportioned, with inner spiritual energy, silky hair and shawl down her shoulders. Her skin was fair and smooth, but the expression on her face was very cold. Luo Lan and the girl stared at each other with big eyes. Who are you? Why are you in my house? Luo Lan was held by the neck, struggling on all fours, but the opponent's strength was great, and Luo Lan was not his opponent. You're home. The girl stared at Luo Lan. You are Luo Lan, aren't you dead? Luo Lan stared black eyes. Of course I am not dead. The girl threw Luo Lan to the ground, and quickly reacted. Her face was cold and said, assholes in the treatment center, they told me that you are dead. Who are you? Luo Lan rubbed his and stood up. Judging from the scene in front of him, the other party seemed to be innocent. The opposite side was silent for a while, and said coldly, my name is Sephria, which is your sister. What? Luo Lan blurted out a surprised voice, and his dark eyes stared at the girl in front of him. How could he never know that he still had a sister? What are you talking about? Sephria frowned. Oh, I'm surprised at your identity. Luo Lan carefully looked at the girl who claimed to be her sister. She was really beautiful. In order to better utilize the advantages of the fighting nation, scions tend to have a very long adolescence. Relatively speaking, in order to make a disguise, the infant state will continue until adulthood, and then grow up quickly when they are almost adult. The girl in front of her was beautiful and charming, and she was probably not far from adulthood. But beautiful, and his personality seems very cold. I am your sister, there is no doubt about this identity. So Sephilia began to tell her origins. It turned out that Sephilia's mother and Luo Lan's mother were relatives. In other words, she was Luo Lan's cousin. She was 14 years older than Luo Lan and was Xi, a rare superior fighter. 5 years ago, she followed her parents and the army to carry out large-scale missions, and only recently returned to Vegeta. As for the specific mission, Sephilia didn't talk much about it. It seemed that the final mission was completed. But the damage is serious. So you really are my sister? Luo Lan confirmed again. Correct. Advanced fighter? Yes. Sephria didn't say much, she looked cold. What is your combat power? Luo Lan asked very concerned. Sephilia glanced at Luo Lan lightly, 4,200 combat power. Hiss, Luo Lan didn't catch his breath, clutching his chest and couldn't breathe. He felt his heart hurt so much. Compared with the chick in front of him, he felt a deep sense of frustration. This girl is definitely a genius. Are you okay? Putting her hand on Luo Lan's forehead, Sephilia faintly compared the temperature. It's okay, it hurts a bit. Your hands are so cold. Luo Lan slowly took a breath, slowly spit it out, adjusted her emotions, and a look of worship appeared on the young face. Sephia's beautiful thighs, he is holding on. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. Sephria, are you really planning to go with me? Lying on the soft seat in the aircraft, Luolan stretched her body. She didn't know what material it was made of. It was very comfortable to lie on. Sephria pressed his hand on Luolan's head, and sneered, "You still want me to help you with this kind of small task? You can do it yourself. Although it is more troublesome, it will not be dangerous to be careful. Philia's younger brother must be a fighter. I am worried about you." Luolan couldn't help but roll his eyes. "It was kind of me to let you go with me. What mission do I really expect myself to perform? It is really the thinking of a fighting nation, knowing about fighting all day long. Vegeta will be gone in another year. Who cares about that mission?" Seeing Sephria's beautiful face, Luolan suddenly felt reluctant. It would be a shame if someone who had taken care of herself for so long would be destroyed together with Vegeta. In the end, however, Luolan still did not tell Sephria the truth. Because he knew that the other party would never believe this. Now the entire Saiyan clan has surrendered to the King Frisia, fighting for him and performing the task of selling planets. For Saiyans who regard fighting as enjoyment, this kind of life is not to mention how delicious. Except for the upper-level King Vegeta who is slightly rebellious, the rest of the Saiyans are probably already used to their current lives. Sephria is his sister, but the time between the two parties is not long after all. It is difficult for Luolan to convince her of the future. If she tells the cosmic people who monitor the Saiyans, it will only be out of the question. I am afraid that even his own life will not be guaranteed. Send me a message when you arrive at the planet Mappa. Will the communication function of the energy probe be used? Sephria leaned in, secured Luolan's seat belt, and then put a circle of things like a helmet on him. That is the controller of the spacecraft, which is also used as an information transmission device. A girl's unique scent came from her nose. I know, I will send you a message. Luolan happily pressed her face close, and Sephilia didn't seem to realize that she was taken advantage of. With a pat on Luolan's head, Sephilia exited the spherical aircraft. At this time, the spacecraft's hatch slowly closed. Through the cyan glass surface, Luolan saw Sephilia standing not far away, waving his arm at him. Luolan couldn't help but feel a bit of parting sadness in his heart, stared at Sephria carefully, and then ordered the aircraft to start taking off. Silly girl, sorry, I'm going to run for my life first. A downward force slammed on the body, and the scenery below became smaller and smaller, gradually turning into a blurred image. After a while, the arc-shaped horizon and the blurred atmosphere became farther and farther. The spacecraft gradually sailed into the vast and dark starry sky of the universe. Through the glass of the spacecraft, Luolan saw that the blue and white star Vegeta was going away at a very fast speed, and soon became a light spot in his vision and disappeared. Finally left Vegeta. As if suddenly relieved in his heart, Luolan slowly took a breath, then slowly exhaled, a ray of determination flashed in his eyes, and then gave a command to the spacecraft. Luolan entered the sleep mode. At this time, the transmission device worn on Luolan's head began to transmit Saiyan fighting skills to his brain cortex. It takes about 2 months to travel from Vegeta to the destination planet Mappa. This distance is actually very far away. It takes only 1 month to travel from the Earth to Namek. In these 2 months, he will fully accept the skills that a Saiyan warrior should master. Planet Mappa is the mission destination chosen by Sephria for Luolan. According to the division of planets in the universe, planet Mappa can only be regarded as a low-level planet, and the combat power of the most powerful creatures on it is also very limited. According to the general division method, planets with the highest combat power below 1000 are classified as low-level planets, those with the highest combat power between 1000 and 5000 are intermediate-level planets, and those with the highest combat power above 5000 are high-level planets. The planet Mappa is a low-level planet, so the biological energy on the planet is below 1000 combat power. In fact, Sefria had already investigated clearly when he chose the mission, and the strongest combat power of the planet Mappa did not exceed 500 combat power. With Loyoland's current 310 combat power, there will be no danger as long as you act carefully after the past. According to estimates, it only takes a few years for Loyoland's power to surpass the strongest on the planet Mappa. The spacecraft flew swiftly, holding up a long tail flame behind it, which looked like a comet, but in fact the tail flame was because the spacecraft was too fast, causing visual errors. In the vast and boundless universe, countless stars twinkle and twinkle in the dark starry sky, like a huge picture scroll slowly opening. On the cosmic scale, the distance between the planet and the planet is very far, even if the two twinkling points of light are not known how many light years are apart. Thanks to the powerful technology of cosmic civilization, the interstellar crossing in the Dragon Ball world is obviously much more convenient, and several star fields can be traversed in a few days or even months. In the night, a bright light flashed quickly and disappeared quickly. After the lens was zoomed in, it was clear that it was a milky white spherical aircraft. In a blink of an eye, it has been 2 months since Loyoland left Vegeta in the aircraft, and the destination planet Mappa was already within reach. The hibernation system of the spacecraft was cancelled when the spacecraft approached the planet Mappa. Loyoland in the seat slowly opened his eyes. Compared with 2 months ago, Loyoland has matured a lot, and his mind is full of Saiyan. The means of responding to the enemy filled his heart with excitement. Planet Mappa, this is my first stop in the Dragon Ball world. The corner of her mouth raised a smile. Loyoland now desperately needs an opponent to test his ability. Planet Mappa, in a dry riverbed. With a piercing roar, a spherical object glowing with red light fell through the atmosphere. After a violent impact, the sky was immediately filled with smoke and dust covering the sky. Due to the lack of moisture around, the smoke and dust could not disperse for a long time, forming a thick haze. On the bare corner of the riverbed, an impact crater with a depth of 100 meters square appeared there. In the center of the impact crater, a milky white spherical vehicle was half buried under the sand and rock, and its surface was charred and steaming hot. With a click, the door of the spaceship opened, and a small figure crawled out of the spaceship, and then slowly rose. Gently patted the dust on her body, Loyoland floated in the air, covering her mouth to disperse the dust in the air. Looking around, what came into her eyes was a dim and dry scene. The forest is very sparse, there are faintly a few towering shrubs, surrounded by beasts walking in groups, just like the African savanna of the previous life. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. This planet is unexpectedly desolate, but according to the information Sefria gave me, the planet Mappa should be a technological planet. Technology planet, of course, is Loyoland's special request to Cephalia. For a rational and realistic person, since it is known in advance that the aircraft and communication devices provided by Vegeta are monitored by the Frisia forces, it is necessary to minimize the use of such equipment and seek other ways out. Who knows, after the destruction of Vegeta, the Frisia forces will encircle and suppress Saiyans who have not returned to Vegeta based on the positioning of the communication device. People seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, and Loyoland is the same. Therefore, it becomes very important to prepare another set of aircraft and energy detectors, so as to reduce the risk of exposing yourself most effectively. Loyoland looked around, and there was a stone forest surrounded by steep mountains in front of him. He flew to a raised ledge, turned on the energy detector to explore the surroundings, and soon energy points were displayed on the single-frame lens. 426, 289, 241, 358. A series of data jumped, but none of the energy values exceeded 500 combat power. Loyoland felt calm for a while. His own combat power is considered high level on this planet, and it is relatively powerful, at least there is no danger. With this understanding, Loyoland's expression becomes more relaxed. As for the task that Vegeta Star gave him, he didn't even think about it. By the way, I need to contact Sephria. Loyolan quickly contacted Sephilia through the energy probe and told her about the planet Mappa. Sephilia was just coldly letting Loyolan pay attention to safety, and she had to go out to perform the mission. Sephilia's mission is definitely more advanced. Loyolan turned off the communicator and did not worry about the safety of Sephria, because an upper-level fighter would definitely receive the attention of the senior Saiyans. Most of the tasks were team tasks. In contrast, the lower-level fighters and the intermediate fighters. The task is more dangerous. The high temperature of the scorching sun shines directly through the thin atmosphere, and there is a burning sensation on the skin. Loyolan wants to take a breath, but was choked by the hot air, and soon coughed, but the Saiyan physique is really good. Excellent, I got used to the high temperature here in a while. Planet Mappa is a low-level planet, about only the size of Vegeta, and its gravity is only 0.2 times that of Vegeta, which is about twice the gravity of the Earth. On this planet, Loyolan only felt as light as a swallow, full of power. After adapting to the environment of the planet Mappa, Loyolan began to consider the next path. Loyolan does not intend to carry out the mission, and the aircraft and energy detectors brought by Vegeta Star, he does not intend to continue to use them, because these technological equipment are actually monitored by Frisia's cosmic people. Loyolan to get rid of surveillance, these devices must be abandoned. The first step is to figure out the distribution of forces on the planet Mappa, and then, find a way to get new spacecraft and probes, but before that, it is even more urgent to fully improve one's strength. In the universe, everything is imaginary, but only power is the most real. The Dragon Ball world has always been a world where the weak and the strong eat the strong. Even if Loyolan has no ambitions, he will desperately increase his strength for the sake of his wealth and life. So the first step is to continue to strengthen oneself during this time. The second step is to obtain a new set of equipment. No matter how you get this set of equipment, whether it is snatching or threatening, these are all necessary means. Although Loyolan wouldn't kill innocent people indiscriminately, she was definitely not a good person. For the sake of his own life, the necessary killings are acceptable. These are all forced by life. After roughly planning 2 steps for herself, Loyolan completely let go of her mind, then turned on the energy detector, and chose a place with a slightly lower energy response to fly away. He first finds a place to live with sufficient food and water. Wow! Loyolan flew along the low prairie, a gust of wind quickly swept over the prairie, the strong wind pressure instantly bent the grass and scattered shrubs below, and also frightened the groups of herbivores and those waiting to prey. Beast! After flying for about half an hour, I finally found a quiet valley between several mountains, not too far from the water pool. The entire valley is surrounded by mountains on both sides, presenting a fan, surrounded by lush vegetation and beautiful scenery. Yi, the gurgling stream flows down the rocky beach and merges into a pool. The environment here is okay, you can live here temporarily. Loyolan looked at the leisurely and quiet scenery around him with a satisfied look in his eyes. He is still in the stage of survival, so he does not have high requirements for life. In fact, as long as he is a Saiyan and has basic combat power, survival is not a problem. Mobilize the energy in the body, condense a blue energy ball in the palm of the hand, and then throw the energy ball into the grove very comfortably. With a bang, a loud noise came from the calm valley, a burst of gunpowder suddenly rose, and the small forest was immediately cleared of a clearing. After the gunpowder dissipated, Loyolan used trees to build a simple shelter on the open space, and covered it with hay, which was regarded as a temporary shelter. With a grunt sound, a hungry voice came from his stomach. Loyolan wiped his stomach and suddenly remembered that he hadn't eaten for a long time. Hehe, I'm still looking for some food. This planet is rich in products and there should be many delicious ones. After the life was temporarily secured, the next step was to treat herself well, and the corner of her mouth curled upwards, Luolan remembered the game from the previous life, and her saliva couldn't help but gurgle. Saiyan's life hobby, in addition to enjoying the fun of fighting, there is also food, which Luolan has also been affected. Because he couldn't distinguish the breath like the people on Earth, Luolan then turned on the detector again, specifically looking for beasts with a certain amount of energy. This beast has a particularly fragrant taste and rich nutrition. After a few electronic beeps, the detector detected that there was an energy source of 120 combat effectiveness 15 km to the east, which was not strong or weak and could be used as a food source. After determining the target, Luolan flew towards the east with a shoe. About a few minutes later, he found the energy source by a watering hole, which turned out to be a lion nearly 20 meters long. This head, you can have a full meal. Luolan smiled. He didn't pay attention to the 120-powered beast. Roar the lion was lying on the edge of the water pool. When he found Luolan's figure, he roared angrily at him, as if defending his territory. The roar resounded through the wilderness, and immediately scared away many wild beasts around him. The birds drinking water spread their wings and flew away. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. Luolan's figure entered the sight of the lion, which immediately angered the lion. It raised its hair and roared, swearing its majesty. However, all this was ridiculous in Luolan's eyes. Roaring again, the lion opened his mouth wide, his sharp beast teeth were extremely cruel, a pair of ferocious beast pupils stared at the intruder, the beast hooves suddenly stomped on the ground, scraping up a large piece of sand, and his huge body leaned back. He rushed out swiftly and actually rushed towards Luolan directly. What a cruel beast! Looking at the culling of this lion with a smile, Luolan showed a hint of playfulness in his eyes, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, his expression was calm and unhurried, his body dodged, and then he clenched his fists and smashed the beast back. With a groan, the lion staggered and made a miserable cry. When he looked at Luolan, the beast's pupils were full of fear, and he roared while his body couldn't help backing back. It's a beast after all. There is no wisdom at all, but now I am very hungry, so unfortunately you want to be my food. As soon as he finished speaking, Luolan raised his finger at the lion. A small energy bomb hovered on the fingertips, and then with a sizzle, the gorgeous energy bomb flickered a few times and accelerated suddenly. The dazzling light shot from the fingertips, and directly penetrated the head of the lion in the next second. A splash of blood, like raindrops, energy rays penetrated the lion's head, and then burst out from the other end. With a mournful cry, the huge body of the lion crashed to the ground, raising a large cloud of smoke. Although this male lion has 120 energy in his body, he has a brute force, but he doesn't know how to release it. It's misfortune to meet Luolan. It is the unchangeable rule that the weak eat the strong, and Luolan who became a Saiyan must learn to adapt to these. Carrying the corpse of the lion back to the temporary shelter, Luolan threw out an energy wave to light the bonfire, then peeled off the skin to remove the internal organs, cleaned up the meat in clean water, and put it on a rack for barbecue. The rich and inviting aroma comes out from the browned meat of the barbecue. Luolan stared at the barbecue with straight eyes, swallowing saliva from time to time in his throat, and when the meat was roasted and browned, he jumped on it. The Saiyan's digestive system is very powerful, almost eating and digesting. A lion that is more than 20 meters long enters Luolan's stomach in the blink of an eye. After a feasting meal, Luolan touched her straight belly and let out a cry of happiness. After eating and drinking, taking a short nap, Luolan's mental state has reached its peak, and it is time to consider the rest. Planet Mappa is just a transit point for him to set foot in the Dragon Ball world, and sooner or later he will leave. The Earth is an ideal choice, at least before the Saiyans attack the Earth, there is absolutely safe place. And there are many resources on the Earth that Luolan attaches great importance to. Fairy beans, Dragon Balls, black technology and chi cultivation methods, these treasures on Earth made Luo Lan's eyes very hot. Vegeta's aircraft must be unusable, because Luo Lan is not sure if the aircraft is equipped with a surveillance system like the energy detector. Fortunately, planet Mappa is a technological planet, and spacecraft should have technology. As for the coordinate position of the Earth, Luo Lan's aircraft is on it. After all, the Earth is not a hidden planet. Frisia is engaged in planet sales activities and has already ascertained the situation there, but because there is nothing but water and outside of the natural environment, there are no special mineral resources, so it has been defined by the Frisia forces as a remote planet with resource scarce, and there is no need to conquer it. In the original book, if it weren't for Monkey King's father, Badak, in order to save Monkey King's life, he would not choose to exile the child there. Ghost resources are scarce. Luo Lan was vomiting in her heart. A real treasure on the Earth, anyone can make the whole universe a sensation. The coordinate position of the Earth is not a secret, and the spacecraft is easy to get. Well, that's it. There was a smile on his face. Luo Lan praised his plan. The intelligent life on the planet Mappa is called the Mappa planet. Its own combat effectiveness is not high, but the level of technology is good. It is said that it was not the native of the planet Mappa at first, but migrated from an alien planet. If Luo Lan wants to their spaceship, he first needs strong force. Then start to improve strength. He knocked hard with both hands. Luo Lan's dark eyes flashed with determination, and then began to exercise his body according to the exercise method of Vegeta Star. He found heavy turtle shells and stones to tie on his body, simulating the way the turtle fairy trained Monkey King. Without the urging of the woman from Sephilia this time, Luo Lan still fisted and kicked solemnly, and soon the crystal clear sweat dripped from his immature cheeks. Fist is a basic skill. Although warriors in the universe like to bombard with energy waves in battle, such battles are refreshing, but in fact they compete with the energy in the body without much technical content. Although the Saiyans' fighting style is crude, but the close combat from fist to the flesh is also the way they have been passionate about. Because this battle mode allows them to enjoy more fun. After honing his fists and feet, Luo Lan began to exercise energy attacks again. Ho! A deep blue energy wave was ignited from his body. Luo Lan raised his arms abruptly, and the energy wave rushed towards the sky, blasting sparks in the sky with a bang, dispelling the thick clouds completely. Seeing the destructive effect he caused, Luo Lan nodded in satisfaction. The only regret is that he still does not know how the energy waves are released, what is the mechanism of their formation from the body, and how to control them more effectively. I only know, but I don't know why. The understanding is still quite shallow. Qi is a very advanced energy. On Earth, martial arts masters like Gaixianren need to practice persistently for decades before they can practice Qigong. It is because they have very little Qi in their bodies and the rate of generation is very slow, so their understanding of Qi is better than that of the universe. People are more detailed. Luo Lan wants to master it. Practicing with a targeted purpose, the effect will naturally be more prominent. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. Time flies quickly and fleetingly, and it has been a week since Luo Lan entered the planet Mappa. During this period of time, Luo Lan has not been in contact with the outside world, but has promoted his strength in a serious manner. The hard work has been very rewarding. Although he didn't realize the essence of Qi, Luo Lan vaguely felt that he had already made a big difference, but he couldn't tell the details. It was just a feeling. The original plan was to the spaceship of the Mappa stars in the next few days, but during an exercise Luo Lan experienced the inconvenience caused by the weakness of the Scion's tail. Squeeze the tail firmly with his hand. A feeling of weakness emerged, and he couldn't even stand firmly. Scion's tail is an unstable factor in battle. Luo Lan sighed, and could only spend some more time training the tail. On Vegeta, all adult Scions or knowledgeable Scions will deliberately exercise their tails to overcome their weaknesses. The original Loyolan hadn't realized this because he was still young and no one was teaching him. But it is not too late to find out. In the following days, Loyolan exercised his tail again. This was a very painful process. Every time he touched the tail, the feeling of powerlessness gave Loyolan a feeling of fainting, which was more than physical exercise. Hard. He prefers to perform high-intensity weight-bearing exercises. About a month after arriving on the planet Mappa, Loyolan hadn't eliminated the side effects of the tail, but she managed to overcome the dizziness when she was caught by the tail. At this time, his combat power reached 350, only 40 points more combat power than before, but he was already a master on the planet Mappa. The most dangerous thing on the planet Mappa is the fierce beasts. The strong are even close to 500 combat power. In contrast, the individual strength of the Mappa people is much weaker. They can survive on the planet Mappa relying on advanced technology. As long as he finds a marginal city to start, Loyolan thinks that no one can keep him. With this judgment, Loyolan decided to go to the city of the Mappa star. Go, robbery! After cleaning up the shelter that he had lived in for more than a month, Loyolan laughed, and his thin body rose into the air. He flew along the mountains all the way, passing hills and lakes at his feet, and soon he came to a 100,000 level. In front of the city, a high wall surrounds the whole city. The surface of the towering wall is covered with moss, and there are signs of cracking in some parts, indicating that this wall has been built for a certain period of time. On the high platform of the wall is erected a black hole fort, which is used to defend against beasts. Although the beasts of the planet Mappa have extremely high energy, they do not use energy waves and other attack methods because they do not have much wisdom. Therefore, excluding some beasts of birds, the huge turrets here are enough to block the attacks of the beasts. The city's defenses are relatively strong, but they can't stop me. Loyolan chuckled lightly, as he entered the city. Rows of buildings crisscross, arranged in geometric patterns, and the streets are very lively. The Mappa stars are short in stature, only over 1 meter tall, but their skin is white. When they see the sky suddenly swept when a figure passed, he couldn't help but stop and watch, and then fled around in panic. They mistook Loyolan for a rare beast. Soon the lively streets became cold, and everyone took refuge in solid shelters. The courage is really small, but this is just right. With a chuckle, Loyolan flew to the largest square in the city. This was the docking point for the spacecraft, and several material transfer spacecraft between cities docked here. Wow! Loyolan's figure quickly attracted the attention of the garrison soldiers. These soldiers immediately picked up their weapons and aimed their black barrels at Loyolan. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! All staff pay attention! A Loyolan dug out her ears with her fingers and blew on her lips. He didn't understand a word of the Mappa star. With a light cough, Loyolan clicked on the energy detector in his ear, and then the voice synchronization function was turned on, and the childish voice echoed in the square, "You guys, find me a spacecraft capable of interstellar voyage, or don't blame me for being polite." No response? Loyolan sneered and raised his hand to form an energy group. Call out! Call out! Call out! Hundreds of beams of energy flashing with bright light were emitted, countless beams of light fell from the sky, puff 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 hit the weapons of the Mappa star people. As the flames rose, these weapons were beaten to pieces and turned into broken copper in a flash rotten iron. Looking at the debris and thick black smoke all over the floor, Loyolan nodded in satisfaction. But soon he realized that his intimidation didn't work. Not only did the Mappa star people not retreat, they became more intense. Rows of soldiers mobilized from a distance, and a group of people carrying all kinds of weapons appeared. The look of resistance. The eyebrows were raised slightly. Loyolan felt a little unhappy. Really shameless. From Loyolan's perspective, as a Saiyan, he originally came to destroy this planet, but now he kindly took away only one spaceship, which is already quite benevolent, replaced by others. Science, how can they have such good luck? I want to resist. It seems to show more power. Luolan snorted coldly, preparing to put a big one. One hand clenched his fist and raised it high. Luolan began to condense energy. As the energy continued to rise, the air around the fist began to twist, followed by a buzzing sound. The dazzling light shone, and the huge energy gathered on the fist, flashing light like a big sun. Ho! You are optimistic. With a low cry, his arms stretched out. The energy bomb shining with blue light flew out from the hand in an instant, and in an instant, like a tiger roaring, the terrifying energy ball flew out more than 5,000 meters at an extremely fast speed and crashed into the majestic mountain outside the city. Then in the puzzled eyes of the Mappa star, an amazing scene happened. Shoo! Boom! Large waves of air rolled turbulently, like the end of the world, with violent roars resounding everywhere, and dazzling flashes of light rose in the clear blue sky. The full strike power of 350 combat power is astonishing. At the beginning of the 23rd World No. 1 Martial Arts Association, Piccolo could easily destroy an island. Luolan is now much more powerful than him. Rumble! The sky was shaking, and the huge mushroom cloud visible to the naked eye was wrapped in terrifying energy and broke through the sky, and circles of shocking shock waves swept across the square, and the wind swept the entire city. When the storm subsided a little bit, the Mappa star was horrified to find that the towering mountain outside the city had been razed to the ground. In an instant, the Mappa stars in the entire city were pale and squatting on the ground in horror. The shock produced by the violent explosion like a nuclear bomb was extremely strong, and Luolan's attack frightened these Mappa stars. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update. That's right. The nuclear bomb level attack is not a joke. Looking at the destruction he caused with satisfaction, Luolan continued to shout down, and the detector directly converted his language into the universal language. Hurry up and hand over your spaceship, otherwise I don't guarantee that the next attack will fall in your city. My lord, we really don't have a spaceship here. A Mappa star with the appearance of an officer tremblingly said, crying. Luolan narrowed his eyes, an array of cold light flashed through her eyes. No. The officer turned pale and looked at Luolan in horror. There are, yet, but they are only cargo ships. We Mappa people rarely come into contact with people from other planets, so there are no advanced ships in small cities. Cargo spacecraft can also do interstellar navigation. The other party said bitterly, yes. Yet. Luolan looked indifferent, but he was already happy in his heart. As long as he could carry out interstellar voyages, he wanted to get rid of Frisia's monitoring. Is there an energy detector? Luolan asked again. Perhaps it was a broken can, and the other party was much refreshed this time. Our detector is not very accurate. Bring me one, and take me to check the spaceship you mentioned. Don't play any tricks. You know the consequences. Although you Mappa do not lack powerful weapons, I don't think there are any in this city. Yes, I can completely destroy you before your reinforcements arrive. The Mappa star, who looked like an officer, had a suffocated face, and said dejectedly, please follow me. Under the leadership of the military officer, Luolan came to the front of a medium-sized spacecraft. The spacecraft was more than 30 meters long and 8 meters high. It was in an ellipsoidal shape as a whole, because it was used for freight transportation and had a huge cargo space inside. My lord, this is the spacecraft. It is the only interstellar vehicle here. Roland felt satisfied at first glance. He didn't value the shape and performance of the spacecraft, as long as he could leave the planet, remove all the positioning functions on the spacecraft. I don't like being monitored. Military officer said, the spacecraft facilities are all controlled by the core computer. You can choose to turn off the positioning function. After getting a rough understanding of the spacecraft's performance, and getting a simple energy detector from the opponent, Luo Lan waved his hand to disperse the Mappa star people in front of him, then boarded the spacecraft and turned on the spacecraft's operating system. With assistance, the cargo spacecraft slowly lifted off. Afterwards, he quickly left the city of the Mappa with the Sai of the Mappa's officer. In fact, these Mappa star people are lucky. If the Scions who came to Mappa planet were replaced by others, they would have already begun in ruthless massacres. Of course, Luo Lan himself didn't know whether Frisia would send another person to clear the Scion disaster after he left. The spacecraft soared all the way, and in the blink of an eye, it returned to the place where Luo Lan landed on planet Mappa. On the dry river bed, the milky white spherical aircraft is still deep in the circular impact crater. Because the climate here is dry, even if it is placed in the open air for more than a month, the surface of the spherical aircraft is only contaminated with a little dust, which does not affect the interior. Usage of copying all the planet's data from the spherical vehicle, including the coordinate position of the Earth, and transferring all the data to the cargo spacecraft. This busy work actually passed for most of the day. It was getting late, and stars began to appear in the quiet night sky. Luo Lan lay comfortably on the flat ground like the African savanna, lighting a bonfire beside him, and driving a carnivore just caught on the fire. He already has the spaceship, food, and the location of the next destination. Now there is only one final preparation left, so he can get rid of Frisia's forces. Thinking about it this way, life is really full of hope. The sense of urgency that had just come to Dragon Ball World and learned that I was in Vegeta finally disappeared. The cabin space of this cargo spacecraft is huge. If you can store food, you can store a lot. I will prepare food tomorrow and fill up all these spaces. Making such a plan in his heart, Luo Lan jumped onto the top of the spacecraft, leaning back and supporting it with both hands. Looking up at the starry sky, in the vast sea of stars, the veil-like Milky Way rushes down from northeast to southwest. The stars are dazzling and sparkling. Large and small stars dot the night, constantly shining with diamond-like brilliance. Gorgeous! Luo Lan smiled and lay down on the cargo spacecraft, and soon fell asleep. The next day. The sun is shining and the climate is pleasant. The warm sunlight on his body, a little warm feeling made Luo Lan wake up, and after a simple breakfast, Luo Lan began to gather enough food, and saw him flying back and forth on the prairie every time, carrying a beast several times larger than his body. Fortunately, there is no one else here, otherwise he would have been frightened by his supernatural power. After a busy period of work, the spacious cargo compartment has been filled with edible meat and vegetables, and then stored in separate rooms. Of course, drinking water is also essential. Clapping his palms, Luo Lan looked at her results happily, and then pressed the operation button to let the core computer control the temperature inside. After doing all this, Luo Lan took a deep breath, glanced at Vegeta's aircraft with complex expression, and then released an energy wave at the inside of the aircraft. After the aircraft was completely destroyed with a bang, he squeezed his hand again. Energy detector in the house. This is a break with Vegeta. No one can find him in the future. Arriving in the main cab of the cargo spacecraft, Luo Lan vigorously ordered the computer, the spacecraft, take off immediately and head to the destination Earth. Beep. Accepting the instructions, we are now retrieving the coordinates of the Earth from the database. The coordinates have been confirmed and the flight mission has begun. The destination of this flight is the southern star field of the northern galaxy, the solar system, and the Earth. The estimated flight time is 6 months. Whether to go. Set off. Very heroic and gave orders, Luo Lan leaned back in the seat and looked forward. But seeing the spacecraft slowly lifted into the sky, and then passed through the atmosphere of the planet Mappa with a swizzle, a downward force suddenly pressed on the body, and the blue star of the planet Mappa gradually disappeared in the next second. After a while, the dim light and shadow completely disappeared from sight. At this time, Luo Lan's mouth showed a smile, looking forward to the beginning of the journey to the Earth. Click when new book investment appears, don't miss it. If you like Dragon Ball God Saiyan, please collect it. Dragon Ball God Saiyan has the fastest literary update.